In the glittering, cutthroat world of New York high fashion, beauty is an illusion, and loyalty is just a trend that goes out of style. On Fifth Avenue, people don't just wear clothes. They wear power. They wear money. And sometimes they wear their darkest secrets. To the elite fashion magazines and the paparazzi, Aria and Dante were the ultimate power couple. Aria was the visionary designer, the queen of haute couture. Dante was her billionaire investor, the ruthless king of global fast fashion. Together, they had built a $50 billion empire, preparing to unveil the Aura Weave, a miraculous, revolutionary fabric that automatically altered its shape to perfectly contour to any human body. They were worshipped as icons. They were deeply in love. And their entire empire was built on a foundation of absolute betrayal. Behind the flashing cameras, there was a ghost, a man named Cale. He wasn't a fashion designer. He was a brilliant material scientist. He was also Aria's husband. Cale was the true genius who had invented the Aura Weave in his dusty laboratory, pouring his soul into the fabric for the woman he loved. But Aria didn't just steal his life's work. She brought Dante into their home, into her bed, and eventually into Cale's laboratory. Together, the lovers stole the patent, locked Cale out of his own company, and left him with nothing but a broken heart. Aria thought she was playing a flawless game. She thought she had used her husband's genius to secure her billionaire lover. But Aria forgot one crucial detail. Cale didn't just design the fabric, he designed the chemistry inside it. And as Aria steps onto the runway of the biggest fashion show in history, Cale is sitting in the front row. He hasn't brought a lawyer. He hasn't brought a gun. He has brought a deep understanding of thermodynamics. And he is about to show the world that when you steal the fabric of a man's life, it has a terrifying way of tearing you apart. The betrayal began 2 years earlier in a cramped, unair-conditioned apartment in Brooklyn. Cale and Aria were married, struggling to make ends meet. Aria was desperate for fame, constantly complaining about their lack of money. Cale, wanting to give his wife the world, spent his nights engineering a miracle. He combined high-end silk with microscopic threads of nitinol, a shape-memory metal alloy used in aerospace engineering. Cale precisely programmed the metal threads to react to human body heat. At exactly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the metal would gently contract, allowing a dress to automatically tailor itself to the exact curves of the person wearing it. It was a billion-dollar idea. Cale named it for her, the Aura Weave. But Aria was impatient. While Cale was working night shifts in the lab, Aria was secretly attending elite fashion galas, where she met Dante. Dante had the billions Aria craved. Their affair was passionate, reckless, and driven entirely by greed. Aria showed Dante her husband's prototype. Dante saw the financial potential to dominate the global fashion industry. One evening, Cale came home early and found them together in his own living room. Aria didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She simply handed Cale a stack of legal documents. Dante had used his corporate lawyers to quietly transfer the intellectual property rights of the Aura Weave to a shell company in Aria's name. "You are a brilliant scientist, Cale," Aria told him coldly, standing next to her billionaire lover. "But you have no vision. You want to make one perfect dress. Dante and I are going to make 100 million of them. You don't belong in this world." They threw Cale out on the street. Aria filed for divorce the next day, legally stripping Cale of his own invention, his home, and his wife. As the years passed, the world of fashion changed forever. Aria and Dante launched Aura Couture. The self-tailoring dresses became a global sensation. Every celebrity, every royal, every wealthy socialite had to own one. Aria became a billionaire, appearing on every magazine cover, holding Dante's hand. Cale spent those 2 years in complete silence. He didn't file a lawsuit. He knew Dante's lawyers would crush him. He took a job at a small, unknown tailor shop in Queens, quietly sewing regular clothes. He watched his ex-wife and her lover flaunt his stolen genius on television. But Cale wasn't broken. He was waiting. Because Cale knew a terrifying secret about the metallurgy of nitinol that Dante's corporate manufacturers completely failed to understand. To mass-produce the fabric and maximize profit, Dante had ordered his factories in Asia to alter the chemical composition of the metal threads, using cheaper alloys. Cale had seen the factory reports. He knew exactly what they had done. He wasn't waiting for karma to strike. He was waiting for the temperature to rise. It is now the peak of New York Fashion Week. The scene is a massive, heavily guarded venue at the Lincoln Center. The global press, A-list celebrities, and the world's most powerful fashion buyers are seated around a sleek, white runway. Aria and Dante are hosting the grand finale, the unveiling of the Aura Supreme, a $10 million dress woven entirely from the smart fabric, adorned with diamonds. Aria has decided to model the masterpiece herself to cement her legacy as the Queen of Fashion. Dante is standing proudly at the end of the runway, wearing a bespoke suit made of the exact same stolen material. The room goes dark. The music pulses. Suddenly, 40 massive, high-intensity tungsten halogen runway spotlights snap on, blasting the stage with blinding, intense light. Aria steps onto the runway. The dress looks magnificent, shimmering like liquid silver. The crowd erupts into applause. She walks with absolute arrogance, staring down at the flashing cameras. Dante smiles, raising a glass of champagne. But as Aria reaches the center of the runway, right under the apex of the massive stage lights, a strange, terrifying sound echoes through the silent room. It sounds like 100 guitar strings snapping all at once. Aria suddenly stops walking. Her arrogant smile freezes. A look of sheer panic washes over her face. She drops her hands to her sides, struggling to breathe. The beautiful, flowing silver dress is violently tightening around her body. "Dante!" Aria gasps into her hidden microphone, her voice barely a whisper as the fabric crushes her ribs. It's shrinking. At the end of the runway, Dante drops his champagne glass. His own custom suit is doing the exact same thing. The fabric is contracting with the brutal force of industrial steel. The sleeves of his jacket are slicing into his wrists. The buttons on his chest violently pop off like bullets, ricocheting into the front row. Panic erupts in the venue. The music stops. The fashion buyers stand up in horror. The paparazzi, smelling blood, start flashing their cameras even faster, capturing the elite power couple suffocating in their own luxury. From the front row, a man stands up. He isn't wearing a designer suit. He is wearing a simple cotton button-down shirt. It is Cale. He steps onto the edge of the runway, completely unaffected by the chaos. He looks up at his ex-wife, whose face is turning pale as the dress continues to crush her. "Turn off the lights, Dante." Cale's voice is calm, piercing through the screaming crowd. Before the alloy completely reverts to its raw state, Dante, gasping for air as his suit collar strangles him, stares at Cale in absolute terror. "Kyle, what did you do to the fabric?" "I didn't do anything, Dante," Kyle says, taking a slow step forward. "Your greed did. It's called an austenite to martensite phase transformation." Aria falls to her knees on the runway, crying in agony, unable to move her arms. "2 years ago, you stole my prototype," Kyle explains, his voice echoing perfectly into the silence of the horrified room. "I designed the original nitinol threads to react perfectly to human body temperature. 98.6 degrees. It was safe. It was stable. But you wanted to save money." Kyle points to the massive, hot tungsten lights hanging above the runway. "To mass-produce the dresses cheaply, your factories altered the ratio of nickel and titanium," Cale reveals to the entire world. "You created a cheap, unstable alloy. You didn't realize that by altering the metal, you raised its phase transition temperature. At room temperature, it's fine, but under 40 high-intensity runway lights, the ambient temperature on this stage is over 110 degrees. The fashion buyers and investors pull out their phones, instantly selling off their shares in Aura Couture. When this cheap alloy hits 110 degrees, Kyle says, his eyes locking onto his ex-wife, it doesn't just gently contour to the body, it violently contracts to its original, tightly coiled raw state. You aren't wearing a dress, Aria. You are wearing a microscopic steel trap, and you just locked yourself inside it. The heat from the lights continues to beat down. The tension in the fabric reaches its breaking point. With a deafening rip, the billion-dollar Aura Supreme dress literally tears itself apart. The pressure is too great for the silk binding to hold. The seams burst open, shredding the masterpiece into 1,000 jagged strips of useless wire and torn cloth. Aria is left kneeling on the runway in her undergarments, completely exposed, humiliated, and weeping in front of the entire world. Dante's suit suffers the exact same fate, ripping apart at the seams. leaving the billionaire looking like a beggar covered in shredded rags. "Kyle, please," Arya sobs, reaching out her trembling hand to the man she had betrayed. "I was wrong. He manipulated me. Help me." Kyle looks down at the woman who had broken his heart, stolen his dream, and thrown him onto the street. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look sad. He just looks entirely indifferent. "No one manipulated you, Arya," Kyle says softly, so only she can hear. "You just chose the man with the deepest pockets instead of the man with the deepest mind. You wanted to wear my genius. Now, you can wear your consequences." Kyle turns his back on the ruined power couple. He doesn't wait for the security to arrive. He calmly walks down the runway, steps through the flashing cameras, and exits the building into the cool, refreshing air of the New York night. The next morning, the Aura Couture empire is entirely liquidated. The stock is worthless. Dante and Arya face massive class action lawsuits from thousands of customers whose cheap dresses had violently shrunk in the summer heat. Their careers are destroyed, their wealth is gone, and their relationship shatters under the pressure of their failure. In a world that is obsessed with glamour, fast money, and betraying the good guy, we often forget that true brilliance cannot be stolen. Arya thought she could use her husband's love to build her own throne. Dante thought his billions could buy him the laws of physics. They thought the world would only admire the fashion and never question the foundation. But Kale taught us a different lesson. You can steal the patent, but you can never steal the mind that created it. You can wear the clothes, but you can't fake the character. Arya chose greed over loyalty, and her empire literally shredded itself to pieces when the heat turned up. Remember, a betrayal might look beautiful on the surface, but it is woven with cheap threads. Never destroy the person who truly loves you for the illusion of wealth, because eventually the spotlights turn on, the pressure rises, and only the genuine will hold their shape. If this story reminded you that loyalty is the fabric of a true relationship, type loyalty in the comments and share this to honor the brilliant minds who never let betrayal break them.